Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Fignite, our Finnish session at Microsoft Ignite. I hope you've all enjoyed the key segments that we had to kick off Ignite. And for the next 60 minutes, we will be having plenty of additional content and useful insights on many of the things that were touched upon during the key segments. My name is Jussi. I work at Microsoft as an Azure Developer Audience Lead. I'm based in Helsinki, Finland, and I thought it would be useful to have the world map here. This is all I could fit in the screen. And on the far right, you can see Finland. If you've never been to Finland, we definitely welcome you there. You can see my home as well. It's marked with home over there. And perhaps this is useful, but we also figured that Finland has a lot of public saunas, so we mapped those on the country map. So these are all the public saunas you can find in Finland. So if you ever choose to visit Finland, we have 1,000 lakes, but we have more saunas as well. So today we have plenty of exciting content. Let me quickly run this through and then we get started with the actual content. We start with Mr. Vesa-Matti Paananen on the latest with data and analytics. Then we hop with Sami Laiho to talk about security, and from there to Laura Kokkarinen on what's going on with Microsoft Teams development, and then to Mr. Lasse Ahonen on building an interesting service on Azure. From Lasse, we move to Jukka Niiranen to look at Power Platform and how it empowers all with Teams users. And then Tony Wilberg from Microsoft will talk how do you manage Linux on Azure. Sakari Nahi will talk about Azure IoT Edge and an interesting solution they helped build. And last but definitely not least, Vesa-Matti Paananen will share the closing words. So we have an exciting 60 minutes coming up. Very happy to have you all here. We also have the Q&A. Please do utilize that if you have any questions or thoughts. We promise to pick as many of those as humanly possible. So first up, we have Mr. Vesa-Matti Paananen, and I would ideally like to call him the Mr. John Wick of data and analytics, and he also knows how to write fluent T-SQL. Vesa, take it away, please.
Thank you, Jussi. So first, welcome everyone, and I'm talking about what's new in data and analytics. And first of all, what's new in data platform for us in Finland? So Jussi, please switch the slide. Thank you. Yeah. So first big thing I would say at today's announcement is that many of the services we've been used to use as a premium or reserved capacity is now available as services where you pay as you go. Probably the biggest thing is the Power BI Premium with the user license. So for small businesses and medium businesses, which in Finland many of the companies are, quite many of the functionalities have not been reachable because of the reserved capacity always requires a big upfront investment. Now, with many of the offerings, Power BI Premium user license, serverless offerings in many of the database services, now including Cosmos DB also, auto scaling and auto pausing with the other database offerings make those premium services reachable for all size of companies. So that's, I would say, the biggest thing. And also one big thing is the on-demand Synapse. So Synapse in overall, you see, click. So Synapse in overall is positioned in the front row and center. So everywhere where we use data in Azure, we can integrate Synapse into. So it's either automatically via Synapse link or via automated integrations. So no matter where your data is, Synapse platform can connect and either query the data on the source or transfer it onto the platform with the pass-through identity. So pass-through identity meaning that if if you query your data, you only need to implement your data security once. So there is no need to implement additional security layers as you are yourself when querying the data. This as whole removes the huge amount of ETL work on the projects, because in a traditional data warehousing world, big thing or big part of the project or implementation projects has been always defining how to move data, how to transfer data, how to define security. Now everything is queryable from the source or integrated directly into your Synapse platform. Also, it's tightly integrated into Power BI. So if you do analytics or visualizations on top of the Synapse information, it automatically detects now with the new acceleration service that what are the painful queries, and then creates new additional objects so that the reports render much more faster than previously. So again, something that previously we needed to use additional work, now it's been handled behind the scenes automatically. And Synapse in overall does not replace your current workflow or infrastructure. So Synapse works in parallel or in adjacent your current workflows, no matter whether you have a Databricks or other data processing tools. Synapse data storages are open and ready for other tools also. But if you don't want to go to the cloud, so if you are no, click Jussi. So if you are a customer who only, please Jussi, click the next slide, but this is not behaving well.
I clicked it already. Can you see it?
Okay,
now?
yes, now it's cloud on-prem. Thank you. So if you are a customer which is not ready for the cloud, so if you have compliance or disconnected scenarios and you're not capable or not, it's not capable for you to move to the cloud, what do you use? Traditionally, box products have a 1 year, 2 year development cycle. They lag behind the innovation based, which lands on the cloud. Now with the Azure Arc, is going today with some parts of it went to the GA and more things to come. It's the cloud innovation is possible also on the on-premise. So it's kind of new innovation for the old servers also. And going forward for the small and medium-sized companies, it also helps when you don't need to do a big upfront investment. And regarding the technical architecture, so if you take the Synapse as a reference architecture on the next slide, Synapse, as said, is in the front row and center, and all the data sources are either linked or automatically integrated into the platform. And you can use all of your current tools. And with all of your current tools, I don't only mean the modern current tools, because companies, they use tools from like 20-year-old tools already today. And the problem has been that how do you merge or how do you use them in a modern world? Now with the Synapse, we have the T-SQL endpoint, and as Jussi said, there is a huge amount of people already knowing how to write SQL statements and a huge amount of applications that know how to connect to the SQL Server. And here, as an example picture, I'm connecting SQL Server 2000 or using SQL Server 2000 to connect to the Azure Synapse and querying document storage on the service. So no matter whether it's streaming data, relational, non-relational documents, or other type of data, Synapse can abstract that as a T-SQL endpoint, which all of the tools can work. So that's, I would say, the biggest announcements and things going in the data platform. Now back to you, Jussi.
Excellent. Thank you, Vesa. Right after we're done with this session tonight, I will go and deploy Azure Synapse. Next up, we have Mr. Sami Laiho on the latest with security. And I've known Sami for a long time, and I have to admit he's among the top 50 nicest people that I've ever met. Take it away, Sami.
Thank you. So it's super happy to see you, everyone here. This will be my all 10 minutes of fame that I will get at Ignite 2020. But if I am only getting 10 minutes of screen time this year, I do have something that I have never had before, which is a personal assistant. So as said, my name is Sami Laiho. I'm from Helsinki, Finland, and I have been a Microsoft MVP for the past 10 years and focusing on operating system troubleshooting and security. And if my personal assistant would change the slide, that would be awesome. Just because of Jussi and Vesa, just before this, I wanted to add you this small explanation about Finnish people's facial expressions. So Jussi and Vesa, they were actually very happy to see you all. This is just a short explanation because Jussi started with saunas. I will start by focusing on getting you to know Finnish people more. Next slide. I had the privilege of hosting a 40th birthday party last year, and I had the virus slayer, chief research officer of F-Secure, Mikko Hyppönen, starting the birthday party. I don't know what you do for your birthdays, but I hosted a conference, and the keynote was done by Mikko. And on that day, on that stage, Mikko said something that I have said to everyone since, which I think is perfect, and that is to understand that you don't need to make your security perfect, you just need to make it better than your neighbors. Meaning it is super difficult to deploy maybe everything that I'm going to talk to you about, but the most important thing is to make the next enterprise or as your neighbor be more tempting than yours is. Next slide, please. One thing that has changed dramatically for during the past few years is the amount of insider threats. There was a huge Twitter scandal where Elon Musk and some presidents' accounts were hacked, and they were asking you to send bitcoins to them, and they would double it and send it to charity. That was an insider job. In the Nordics, where we live, our statistics currently are that only 28% of all attacks against companies are by their own people. If we think about global numbers, we are closer to 40%. That's just a yearly increase that's on the slide, but globally that's 40% of all attacks are caused by our own people. So we have to kind of start changing how we deal with security, because we have to not only focus on someone attacking us through the network firewall, but someone actually compromising the environment from the internal network. Next slide, please. Everything that happens in security that you need to know about will be posted on Twitter. So I want to take this opportunity to just ask you to follow me as well. But there is one very smart Swedish person. That's it. Well, no, he's called Johan Arvidmark, and Johan said that if you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter. That's his quote that I stole, but that's where you should be. That's the only social media that you need for your job. So head there unless you are already present. Next slide. What I'm also going to talk about is not only about the maybe more familiar territory for me, which is securing Windows operating systems, but we do have to understand that all security is about monetizing, which means the attackers want to monetize as fast as possible, and to do that they need an audience as big as possible. And now we have grown up in a world where for decades Windows was the biggest platform, but now if we think about the biggest platform, I do have to admit that Windows still gets about 1 million pieces of new malware per day. So this amount for Android, which is about 24,000 malicious apps per day, is of course not the same level. But on the other hand, if we look at the next slide, we can see that Android is actually more popular than Windows is, and actually has been for a few years already, which means that the biggest platform to attack is not your Windows platform, but your Android. I am from Finland, which is also known as the Nokia land, and that means that I'm probably going to be put into jail for using an iPhone. But sadly, we don't have really that many Nokia phones anymore, and the ones that are saying Nokia, they're not made by Nokia anymore. So I have to use an iPhone. I had to choose iPhone or Android, and I'm really sorry. I would love to use Linux because it's a Finnish operating system, so Android would be an obvious choice, but I can't do that because if I'm on stage somewhere and I'm talking about security and I'll wave my hand and show them an Android device, I'll get really bad feedback and they'll laugh me off the stage. So it is a decision that I've had to make just because of my job. But let's talk about this platform as well. We are living in a world where if we go back about 10 years, 15 years, we lived in what I call Wild Wild West. That's when I started my career as a security person in a way. I got rid of local admin rights in 2002. And I was the only one. I remember I was in Lake Buena Vista in Orlando. That was actually really funny because that was the day when Vista was announced to have the name of Vista, and I happened to be in Buena Vista to hear that. And when I heard that, or in that conference where I heard it, there was one session with about 1,200 people, and I was sitting in the audience, and the speaker asked the audience, is there someone in the audience who doesn't have local admin rights? And I raised my hand, and at the same time I realized that I was the only person out of 1,200 people holding my hand up, and everyone was laughing at me and looking at me like an idiot. So that was a time where we lived in a world where we decided what we have on our computers. We could install what we wanted. We trusted all apps to be good. Now, currently, we are in this non-admin epoch. This slide is, by the way, stolen straight from Microsoft, and it's actually done by a very good friend of mine. Thanks to him for lending it to me. So these terms are not my own. Non-admin epoch, meaning we are living in a world where Gartner for the past 5 or 6 years has said that the biggest feature to deploy in security is principle of least privilege. And we're kind of getting there. My company makes most of our money from this, getting rid of admin rights. So we still have work to do, but we're getting more to the place where we don't have admin rights. Our company installs apps that we need, and we still do trust all apps. So we don't choose what are good apps. We try to figure out 1 million bad things per day out of the applications. So we're still trying to reactively find what are bad things. That's like anti-malware. We're not listing the good things, but we are limiting what the users can do to their machines. I have a customer in Switzerland that took away end user admin rights in 2018. I was helping them out, and in 2019 we had the first statistics, and in 2019 they have 12,000 computers, and in 2019 they had 75% less help desk tickets. So people should just remember that it's not about what people say is that if I don't have admin rights, if they don't have admin rights, they can't fix their computers. But no, if they don't have admin rights, they can't break their computers. So that is one of the most important things. We have providers that have made this possible. BeyondTrust.com, for example, builds apps that are made to give applications or processes admin rights when needed. A good friend of mine, Jeremy Moskovich, has PolicyPack. PolicyPack can do that for you. Finland has our own Centero.fi that do the same thing, help you get rid of admin rights. So that is one of the most important things. But we now have the tools, and I think we have the will as well. So we are going to move from, let's say we're establishing this time where we have no admin rights, but we are moving to the place where we need to whitelist all applications, or actually allow listing is the correct word now. And that's where we're going from now, and that's what I hope everyone will start to do. Every week I am building these whitelisting solutions that companies will list the good things. It's a lot easier to list one good thing per week than trying to list 1 million bad things per year. 1 million bad things per day. What I'm going to finish off my time slot with is talking about zero trust. And I don't want to say I was right, but I'm going to say I was right. When Microsoft brought in a few years ago, you remember the only thing they spoke about was bring your own disaster, which was the cool new way of taking your own computer to work and have it only lightly managed, and company don't have to even pay for the computers. Now, this Ignite, all you're going to hear about is zero trust. Zero trust means everyone needs to be verified all the time who they are with multi-factor authentication. No one will have admin rights. All applications are pre-approved. No network is treated as a home network or a corporate network. We assume breach. Every network is an evil network, and every network is treated the same. So that's the main thing about it. Firewalls are on always. No network is trusted. All network communications are encrypted, and we assume breach. But check out all the zero trust components. They'll be identified during the Ignite from now. And I think that's my time of fame here. So I'll let it go back to Jussi or the next one, or Laura.
Thank you, Sami. Excellent stuff. And next up, we have Laura to talk about Microsoft Teams development. And Laura is definitely the person that I call when I need to understand more about Teams development or cats. Laura, take it away.
Thanks, Jussi. I don't do any jokes, at least intentionally, so let's get straight down to business. If you attended Microsoft Build in the spring, you might have heard that there's quite a lot of new features coming for the Teams app development scene during 2020, and some of those already happened, so let me recap them for you because they're quite recent and you might have missed them. So, first of all, we have a new Visual Studio IDE available, which allows us to create new Teams app projects for C#, namely tabs, bots, and messaging extensions. It's available on the Visual Studio the brief test, and it still requires a little bit of work, but there's quite a lot of potential. So if you prefer developing with C#, I recommend that you definitely give that a go. And if you run into any bugs, or when you run into it, get them fixed and get this extension to be something superb in the future, because that would help tremendously in making this whole Teams app development scene more mature in the future. However, if you prefer developing for Node.js, there's also an extension for Visual Studio Code, and that creates projects using JavaScript. And that's also available on the Visual Studio Marketplace, and it is also in preview. My personal favorite, though, for Node.js projects is using the YoTeams human generator. That's an open source initiative on GitHub and can be found under the Microsoft 365 Patterns and Practices organization. And what that does, it generates you the Teams app project, but it is in TypeScript, not just in plain JavaScript. And it also includes useful NPM packages like the Fluent UI React package to your project, so your Teams tab can have the same look and feel as the Teams client. Then on other news, we have a new Power Automate messaging extension trigger, and what that allows us to create is a messaging extension using Power Automate, and that is usable when you have a chat message either on a chat channel or a private chat or a group chat, and there's always 3 dots in the top right corner, and when you go there to click more actions, then your Power Automate flow will appear in that menu. So this is a really great way for quickly building new messaging extensions for that message context. And for a selected message trigger itself, it allows you to configure an adaptive card for collecting additional information from the user. So personally, what I did as the first thing when this feature came out was to create a Power Automate flow for creating a to-do task of a chat message, because I have colleagues who ask me to do stuff and I can never remember to do that if I don't ask a task for myself in to-do. So now I have an easy way of adding a to-do task for myself. So I can just go there, click on those 3 dots, and then add a to-do task based on that message. And then the adaptive card that I have created using that trigger, it pops up this little model window, and I can supply additional information such as the due date for the task. And then the Power creates a new task using the action based on the message content and other metadata included in the message and the information that I just provided. So creating that took me just 5 minutes. It's 2 actions, really quick to make. So if you're ever considering creating Teams messaging extensions, I recommend that you check Power Automate first, and if you can do what you want with that. For other extension points for messaging extensions, you still need to implement those by using code like until now. But I think it's great that we have one more tool in our toolkit. So now we are able to create Teams apps by utilizing Azure PaaS services, SharePoint Framework, Power Apps, Power Virtual Agents, and now also Power Automate. That's all I had, and back to you, Jussi.
Thank you, Laura. Great stuff. Next up, we have Lasse to talk about building a public procurement service on Azure. And with Lasse, I think we've been troubleshooting for so many different technical issues in our past lives that I'm super happy to hear what he's up to next. Take it away, Lasse.
Thank you, Jussi. And since you are the certified PowerPoint clicker, could you please click my slides forward? Not yet, but when the time is right. Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Lasse Paananen, and I work as a tech manager at Hansel. In this short session, I will share some highlights from our Azure journey. Hansel's core business is to create public procurement frameworks to Finnish government. We started our Azure journey a couple of years ago when we built up from scratch an award-winning service called Tutkihankintoja.fi, only in 5 months' time. This service is all about openness and transparency of public sector spending. For companies, the service provides information on current market conditions. The data is updated on a weekly basis, so in this case, it is pretty much in real time. And we were one of the very first countries in the world to produce a service like this. And like Sami told earlier in this session, we Finns have several facial expressions, and this is our really proud face. Next slide. In Tutkihankintoja.fi, the procurement data can be inspected and searched from 3 perspectives: buyers, suppliers, and procurement categories. When browsing through suppliers, you might see these kind of basic results and go to more detailed views from there. And next slide, if you want to explore different procurement categories, you can check the category listings and drill down further if needed. Also, next slide, if you like to analyze the data with your own tools, you can find the whole Tutkihankintoja dataset from the avoindata.fi service with keywords Tutkihankintoja or Open Procurement and download it from there. Next slide, please. Our main development guideline in Azure from the very beginning was platform as a service first and no virtual machines. And we managed to stay on that road pretty nicely. Thanks to Azure services, we can focus our resources on developing the service rather than maintaining tasks of the underlying infrastructure. After the Tutkihankintoja.fi service was up and running and awards were collected proudly, we have ramped up several new services in our Azure environment. Our machine learning experiment was a really interesting project to execute, and we have tested some other bleeding edge services as well and innovating new ways to create more value to our customers. The latest of our services so far is the hankintailmoitukset.fi, also known as HILMA. The service was, of course, developed without virtual machines, following our platform as a service first guideline. The source code can be found from GitHub, and the service can be accessed through APIs also. HILMA is the official service for notices on public procurement in Finland. Public buyers publish notices on upcoming and ongoing tendering procedures, as well as the results of the procedures. I recommend you to check it out, since the service is about tendering. You might even find great business opportunities for your company. And next slide, please. You can find the links to our services on this slide, and feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Thanks, and back to you, Jussi.
Thank you, Lasse. And then we'll move on to Power Platform and how it empowers all Teams users. And up next, we have Jukka Niiranen, and Jukka is definitely the person that knows everything about empowering users, and definitely through Dynamics 365 and also now with Power Platform. Take it away, Jukka.
Thank you, Jussi. So let's talk for a moment about how the Teams and Power Platform are giving new superpowers to business users. First of all, I believe this is all part of a bigger shift. So it's now been 10 years since we heard this quote from Mark Anderson about software eating the world. And if you look back at the past decade, then I guess we can say that after all the disruptions that came from software rather than capital or labor, it's fair to say that he was pretty spot on with the prediction there. So back in 2011, this software disruption really required you to have professional developers write custom code to build the applications. But today, I believe that we are now entering a new stage in this revolution where these local platforms are now bringing this software revolution to the hands of all business users. So let's drill into how Teams and Power Platform fit into all of this now. Thinking about the regional low-code apps in the Microsoft world, the Dynamics platform has offered this type of app capabilities for already 15 years now. And more recently, the Power Apps has been introduced that brought a whole new audience of citizen developers for this platform. And now with the recent announcement of the Microsoft Teams and Project Oakdale, any Teams user can actually be an app maker as well. And why is this a big deal? The answer really is in the size of the audience. So let's think that on a relative scale, if there was one person who was skilled enough to technically develop a Dynamics application, then comparing that to Power Apps, it already expanded that to easily 10 times bigger audience of citizen developers. And thinking about the broadies of Teams, I'd say that we can already guess that it would be 100 times more people who could actually build an app on top of this platform now, thanks to the new Oakdale products. And the key concept here really is the fact that it really truly is a common platform for these different app types. So underneath them all is the Common Data Service, CDS, that powers the data model behind the applications and business logic and all those admin features. And now the announcement of the Project Oakdale is a really big deal because that now removes a licensing barrier from the setup. So basically all Teams users can now go and build apps on top of the same CDS foundation at no additional cost. So that is a big deal, definitely. And we can also picture this platform as stairs that you can climb up. So the barrier for creating your first application there on top of Teams is very low now. So if you have a simple business problem that you want to solve for you and your team members, then it's easy to get started just by creating app inside your private Teams there. And then if this app actually becomes more popular, you need to spread it out to other teams, then you can take it to Power Apps, extend it with custom code, or even start using the ready-made Dynamics apps from Microsoft. And you don't need to change the toolkit along the way there. So you can just rely on the same investments that you made in the earlier steps and just keep on building on top of the same foundation there. And it also works the other way around. So let's say that we have big enterprise applications like Dynamics there. So we could make them a lot easier for users to approach by building these simple task-based experiences for mobile devices or Power Apps, or then provide collaboration tools via Teams integration and Teams channels to discuss on these different records in those systems. And ultimately, it really is about not just saving on the amount of custom code you have to write and maintain, but really the biggest shift in Power Platform and low code is that it unlocks the innovation on the front line. So where that work actually gets done. So instead of the traditional top-down approach for implementing systems, you could rather foster a culture of bottom-up innovation and get everybody involved in designing and creating apps for themselves and solving those problems that they identify there in the field. And finally, I want to show a quick data point to prove that the team's effect in growing the size of the audience for this low-code technology is very real indeed. So on my personal blog, I've been writing about Dynamics and other boring BizApp stuff for 12 years already. And on a regular Monday, I would expect to get maybe max 30 visits per hour on a good day. But so last week, for the first time, I wrote about an article about Microsoft Teams as a platform. And what happened then? Well, immediately I found myself on the top 10 list of Hacker News. There was a huge spike in traffic, like 1,500 people rushing in there to read the articles. So yeah, this is what Teams can do to your business applications. So the audience is really, really much bigger than what it ever used to be in the good old Dynamics days. So I'm, of course, incredibly excited about this new audience and looking forward to talking about Power Platform with many new users who will discover these features via Teams in the future. So there's a couple of links there to find more details about Power Platform. And so thank you and welcome to the Low Code Revolution.
Thank you, Jukka. Excellent stuff. And next up we have Tony to talk about managing Linux on Azure. I think we met with Tony for the first time about 20 years ago. And
yeah, something like that.
And the first word he said to me was Linux, and I think that will be the last word he will say to me eventually. Future. Take it away, Tony.
Yeah, that could be. So hi, everyone. My name is Tony. I work for Microsoft, and I am interested about Linux, and I think many other people are as well. But before that, let's see where it all started. So in the next slide, you'll see this is a message kind of famous about 30-ish years ago. A student called Linus Torvalds sent to a public news group, and he said that he started a hobby and it will never be a big and professional. He wanted to create his own operating system because he couldn't afford a commercial Unix operating system. So let's see, about 30 years later, where we are today. Big company like Microsoft and our partners talking about Linux on Azure. If we would look like 5 years back, it was still like, what are these guys talking about? Why is it important? But now, 2 years ago, we announced that already over half, or approximately half of all the Linux or all the virtual machines in Azure are actually Linux already. And it seems the trend is growing. We haven't since then published any new numbers, but here you see Microsoft as a company has also gone a long way since 2009 when we first committed code or patches to the Linux kernel. So let's look at some end-to-end Linux tools that are available in Azure today. So those of you who are familiar with Linux as like a server operating system or even as a desktop, you probably know many of these tools mentioned here. Basically, this picture is to showcase that there are tools for everything from security to maintenance to automation, all the way to the integrated support with, for example, companies like Red Hat and SUSE for their enterprise Linux operating systems. And there are also different licensing models, since you have like a consumer free-to-use Linux, and you also have our enterprise licensed subscription-based Linuxes. So all of those are fully supported, and also from commercial terms, the subscriptions are supported in Azure. So going forward, Microsoft have been talking a lot about new features on Azure today. And some of the things that were announced today were, for example, the Azure Hybrid Benefit for Linux, which is now in preview. This is basically about how you can bring and convert between pay-as-you-go Linux on Azure and bring your own license or bring your own subscription for Linux on Azure. That's very useful for enterprises having already commercial Linuxes on premise. So go take a look at that. Another thing that was already announced some days ago is NFS support on Azure. And this is extremely important and useful feature when you are building clustered systems on Linux. This was missing for a long time. Now finally it's available. And finally, something that is already in GA is a Azure Shared Disks. So basically a block storage support for Linux on Azure. And this is very useful when you, for example, do like multi-home databases on Linux. Let's look a couple of things. So we have basically 3 steps when you are moving or migrating stuff from on-premise to Azure when we talk about Linux. So we have 3 options. Rehosting basically means that you just lift and shift stuff and don't move so much. And here we see a list of various Linux distros being supported and available in different methods from Marketplace, bring your own, and even there are tools for building your own Linux golden images. Next step is a refactoring. So this basically means that you change something. You don't want to do pure lift and shift. You change something, and typically this is where you use automation tools, such as Ansible that is mentioned here. Another one very popular one is Terraform. And the last step we have is re-architecting. And this is something that is more and more common nowadays because you want to modernize your applications. We talk about application innovation. And typically, the trend is to move virtual machines to Azure and then modernize them to containers or serverless using Azure Functions, Azure OpenShift, AKS, and so on. And there are hundreds of different Azure services the Linux developers can use. But what could possibly go wrong? This all sounds very easy in paper and in the project plans, but I haven't been involved in lots of different customer and partner projects over the years, and there are things that could go wrong. I've listed some of the things here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I think those of you who have been doing this hands-on, you can really relate to these things. So starting from operating system version and lifecycle, for example. So one hint here is make sure that the operating system you are moving to Azure is actually supported. It's not like from 5 or 10 years ago. Next step, couple of things to take a look in the applications and services in the next page. So when you do assessment for the applications or the virtual machines, couple of things to take a look. So is the application supported? Are there some certifications from third parties and so on? And some services that always go wrong. So first guess is always the DNS. That's what always breaks for me and everyone else. And next page, we talk about subscriptions and support. This is also really important to understand when you migrate stuff to Linux. So who owns the subscriptions, who owns the support contracts and so on. So not all the problems are technical. And don't worry about these 3 pages of different what could go wrong. There are solutions for all of this. So let's look at the next page. We have some best practices that you can basically prepare for not encountering these problems. So a couple of technical details here, like a keep swap, which is the temporary memory on Linux in a separate temporary disks, and to never store your application data onto system disk because it becomes difficult to resize. And as I mentioned, use supported versions, long-term support, for example, for Ubuntu or extended support versions for Red Hat Enterprise Linux and so on. And as Sami mentioned earlier in his presentation, security is very important. So update often, make sure that you are secured. And final thing on this page is, before going here, is basically if you do it once, it's okay to do it manually. If you need to do it twice, please automate it. That's needed also later on. It's not the second or the last time that you will need to do it. And if you only would need to learn 2 things today or during the Ignite week. So I would highly recommend you to look at the update management, which fully supports Linux on Azure and Windows as well. Another thing is Azure policies. Basically, this one helps you as like cloud governance or cloud owner or the subscription owner to make sure that you force the operating system admins to use only certain versions, for example. And a couple of points that you can get this week also related to Linux was the Windows subsystem for Linux that was mentioned there in the bottom of the previous page, and Windows Terminal that was very useful. And before I run out of time, I would like to highlight a couple of links here, especially the last one here. So if you really want to learn how to operate Linux on Azure, go to this page and download a free ebook that I helped to do technical review to. So hands-on Linux administration on Azure. Very useful and concrete examples how you operate it professionally on Azure. And that's what I wanted to say about Linux on Azure. Back to you, Jussi.
Thank you, Toni. Great stuff again. And next up, we will be talking about Azure IoT Edge, and we have Sakari to talk about that. He is seriously the man, the myth, the legend. Take it away, Sakke.
Thank you, Jussi, for those modest words to introduce my modest self. My heart is beating. It's the first Ignite session for myself ever, so it is very great to be here with you all. I will talk very quickly about this case that Valmet, a global company, has been doing. We've been helping them a bit, and how they use Azure IoT Edge to help their customers deliver gas. And since we are gonna skim over this quite fast, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. I'm Sakari Nahi. I'm the CEO of Azure, and I'm also an Azure MVP and a Microsoft Regional Director. Here you see some other links you can use to reach me. Azure is a company based in Finland and in Belgium, and what we do, we only do Azure. We design, build, and maintain complex solutions on Azure Platform as a Service. Before we got the case, this is me an hour ago. It was a pickle. The plant wanted to sit there, and I wanted to sit there. And since there's a bunch of MVPs on the other side of the wall right now watching this talk, they kept bothering me, and I couldn't make the call. But now it seems to be fine, and the plant is happy here. The studio is done just for you. So Valmet, the customer first. Valmet is a large global organization that does a bunch of stuff with hardware and software in multiple industries. So they are big. The case is about virtual pipelines. What's a virtual pipeline, you ask? Virtual pipeline is about delivering gas. Now, in multiple locations, in factories, sites, and installations, there's a demand for different type of gases like liquefied natural gas and compressed natural gas and these types of things. But the issue is that gas pipes are crazy expensive. Now, there's a lot of gas pipes that go in Europe and different places, but there's also multiple sites that don't have any gas pipes, and especially in the Nordic countries, there are a lot of locations where there are no gas pipes. Now, if a company sets up a gas station somewhere, it's probable that they might not want to dig a gas pipe into ground because of the capital expenditure. Now, here virtual pipeline comes into question. And funnily enough, it's not a pipeline, it's a bunch of trucks that drive tanks filled with gas to a location where the gas is about to end. The idea is good, the idea is sound, it's operational cost and trucks are cheaper than digging a gas pipe. But of course, the issue comes with the information, the scarcity of information, the timing is the issue. Now, it might be difficult to know when a gas tank is going to be empty at a large site tomorrow or the day after, and when to send the truck from 500 kilometers away. Now, Valmet can help with this. They have this end-to-end solution that can predict the timing to be the best time to send the truck with a tank filled with gas. Now there's a YouTube link to this Valmet DNA integrated operations tool. You can check if you want to know more about this Valmet solution. But basically what this solution does, it ensures that you as a customer can deliver gas in a timely manner to your site or installation. To be able to do this, integrated operations needs data. The data starts from the tank, of course. The site has tanks and the tanks are almost empty. Here we can see a liquefied natural gas tank. That's what they look like. And it's filled with sensors. These sensors provide and send data to some kind of a controller on site. In this scenario, Siemens S7 1500 programmable logic controller. And this kind of device usually has some kind of a Modbus server or protocol capability. Now in this solution, the data from this PLC is sent to a gateway device, the Dell Edge Gateway 3003 in this solution that hosts the Azure IoT Edge runtime. And there we have some modules that do the magic, and the data is further sent to Azure IoT Hub. And from there, wherever of course, then the data is ingested to Azure and you can send the data forward to Event Hubs or Stream Analytics or Azure Databricks, Cosmos DB, SQL, time series insights. If we look at these steps one by one, this was the first one, the PLC, and sure, it's clear it gets the sensor data and then it gets polled for the data by the gateway device, and that's clear. But why I wanted to include this slide is this Siemens integrated development environment picture you see here that is used to program new capabilities into the PLC. And it's cool because it's low code like Power Apps kind of thing. So they are really ahead in time. From there, the data goes to the Dell Edge Gateway that is running the Ubuntu server operating system that has the Azure IoT Edge runtime. Inside that runtime, we have two primary modules. We have the Microsoft's Modbus module, thank you, that we use to communicate with the PLC to get the sensor data. And then we have a custom module that is being used to transform the Modbus protocol messages to a suitable format that we can then send forward to the Azure IoT Hub, or that can be asked for by Azure IoT Hub. This is a good device, this Dell Edge Gateway. We are also looking at comparable devices by Moxa. Moxa came out with some Azure Edge IoT compliant devices as well. So those seem suitable, just to let you guys know. Azure IoT Hub is the next step, and there we have two-way communication with the gateway device, and that two-way communication is done by invoking methods directly on devices. So we use this IoT Hub's direct method communication mechanism that is a two-way communication. Basically, it is a request reply kind of communication, and it works in a way that you invoke a certain device with a given device ID and get the response. The other interesting bit is the usage of certificates to secure the traffic, and that's not all we do with them, because this solution is multi-tenant, basically meaning that there's a lot of end customers. So these certificates are used to authenticate and authorize and recognize the clients that they are the owners of the devices. We also use the Devis provisioning service to register the devices to IoT Hub. And basically, this is the last meaningful slide of this talk, time series insights. This is a time series database, a historian service by Microsoft on Azure. And I think the Generation 2, a new version of this, just came generally available at the end of July. And if you've seen or used or read about time series insights before during Generation 1, I urge you to read about Generation 2 now, because generation 2 is really a totally new beast. It's been redone and it seems a lot more robust than generation 1. There's a lot of issues that have been fixed from generation 1. Now, if you're not familiar with time series insights, it's basically this database where you can store vast amounts of data, and then you get this kind of diagram you see in this screen, and you get all kinds of nifty aggregate calculations on minimums and maximums and standard deviations. And that's cool, of course, getting the diagrams and visualizations. But what's actually cool is that time series insights also offers an API you can query with your digital services and other applications, and basically in that way get nicely grouped data from your hundreds or thousands of devices and aggregates for a given time interval. So it can be a pretty speedy and robust offering if used correctly. That said, I think I'm done with the Valmet, and thank you.
Thank you, Sakke. And last but definitely not least, we have Vesa-Matti Paananen from Microsoft with a couple of closing words. And I think Vesa is still driving a Volkswagen to work and back. Take it away, Vesku.
Thanks, Jussi, and thanks having me here at the end for the few closing words. Click next one. I wanted to get back to the Satya Nadella's keynote today about resilience. This has been awesome event, great presentations, and this is like a Christmas time for all nerds like us. Tons of new announcements and stuff. But about the resilience, in Finnish we have the word called sisu, which is a characteristic of the person who wants to go through any obstacles. And we really are hit by this pandemic, and we and our organizations, we have to go through that. Let's go next slide. We have defined these 3 different phases. Response that we have been doing right now, and now we should move to the recovery phase and then reimagine. But here, every one of us in a call, we have the techies. It's really our collectivity opportunity and responsibility to define what comes next. We know that it won't be usual, so we really need to develop an accurate sense of what should be rebuilt and what should be reimagined and what should be left behind. Next one. So a lot of things has happened, and we made a study in summertime, and from that study, one of the findings were that we are really taking this digitalization big leaps right now. 89% of the CEOs are accelerating their public cloud investments, and that was the outcome from the study. And we had the same question 6 months before, and at that time it was 54% of the CIOs making the same note. So really a lot of things are happening there right now. And I took his quote from Satya Nadella. So no business is 100% resilient for those who fortify that digital technology are more resilient and more capable of transforming when faced to secular structural changes in the marketplace, like we are facing right now. So that's what we call tech intensity. So next slide. It's really let's go to the next slide. So it's really our responsibility here to drive this kind of purpose digital transformation. So there will be business outcomes for employees, customers, operations side, and ultimately we can transfer our products and services, new digital ones. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind that we have to build our societies. It should be more inclusive, build trust, secure the fundamental rights, and especially secure the most precious thing that we have, the planet Earth, all the sustainable things. So my call to action for every one of you is that please drive the technical skilling in your organizations, from the business, from the sales to the IT, and that will increase the resilience and accelerate you and your customers' digital transformation. We have everything there for you. Go to Microsoft Learn and find the information there. So this is what I want to leave for you tonight. Thank you. Back to you, Jussi.
Thank you, Vesku. And thank you to everybody who tuned in tonight or this morning, depending wherever you are. Thank you to all the speakers. As a small gift for all of you, if you scan the QR code or go to aka.ms/Fignite, we have a limited amount of Azure Heroes learner badges available for you. So feel free to claim yours right now. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of Microsoft Ignite. Thanks.